everyone, welcome to the Guru Talks. My name is Rahima Babayeva and I'm going to be your interview moderator for today's session. Today our guest is Dr. Mohamed Soliman. Let me introduce our guest to you a little bit. Dr. Soliman is the chairman of the Petroleum Engineering Department at the University of Houston and the holder of the Miller Endowed Chair. Prior to joining the University of Houston, Dr. Soliman was a George Livermore Professor of Petroleum Engineering at Texas Tech University. Professor Soliman had also worked for Halliburton Energy for more than 30 years in several technical and managerial positions. He is a distinguished member of SPE and a licensed professional engineer by the state of Texas. He is also a fellow of the National Academy of Inventors. He has authored and co-authored more 250 technical papers and several book chapters. He also holds 36 U.S. patents. He is also the editor of Fracturing Horizontal Wells, published by McGraw-Hill in July 2016. He is also co-author of book on fracturing shale formation. Dr. Soliman holds a bachelor degree from Cairo University and master and PhD degree from the Stanford University. His areas of interest include fracturing, well test analysis, diagnostic testing, and numerical simulation. So, Dr. Soliman, would you like to say something before we get started?
No, that was very good. Thank you very much for this introduction.
Thank you very much. So then let's start from the part one, early life questions. Thank you to you for joining us today. My first question is, it's very interesting question for us. Where you were born and how would you describe yourself as a child?
I was born in Suez, Egypt. My father was working there, so we're there for maybe a year or two. As a child, I can tell you I was very avid reader. I'm talking about starting the second grade. I would read a lot, fiction, non-fiction, books written by Egyptian or Arab writers. I read a lot to Naguib Mahfouz and Tawfiq al-Hakim and Taha Hussein. I read their books. I also read translated novel, all kind of things. I read non-fiction, including things about revolution, socialism, because we had to read all that stuff when we were kids. But I would read all the time, and that is something that many people do not do anymore because of the social media. You get so distracted into it. Reading was, I always found it more interesting because you let your imagination go, basically, rather than you watch what somebody else has put together.
Thank you very much. I will keep going with childhood, to be honest. When you were a child, what was your dream job and why?
I never thought of a job. I actually, when I was maybe late in elementary school, in the early and middle school, which would be 7th grade. It may have been elementary school. I actually thought of that I would become a writer, nothing to do with engineering or math, although I was very good in math, as you may imagine. When I was a kid, before going to school, I taught myself, parents and older brothers don't help. I taught myself all the numbers, how to add and subtract. I did that. I was not even 5 years old, all on my own. But reading became something that I wanted to do very much. And I never told that to many people. I actually started writing a novel, and if I had kept what I've written, the parts of what I wrote, of course, is not as sophisticated as something I would do now. But I was still in elementary school, and believe it or not, later on I watched the movie Stargate, And some of the things that I was writing was not too different. Obviously, it's not as sophisticated, of course. It's not as elaborate. But certain things were not that different. Uh, but obviously, with time, you got more involved in schoolwork and wanting to do well in, in math, physics, chemistry from the science side of work. I was not too interested in in. I like the history, but not in geography and. No.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing this information with us. But by the way, did you name your little novel or what?
No, I started on it. I wrote maybe 20, 30, 40 pages. I don't, this has been many years ago, as you may imagine. And I abandoned that effort. You get, when you're a kid, you get involved in so many things. And at the time I started reading more about, I, I, something that not too many people, kids in Egypt would read. I read the Odyssey and the Iliad, the translation of it was kind of interesting. I don't know that a student would realize what the Odyssey is and what the Iliad is. It's a Greek literature that are very old. I enjoyed reading those.
Wow, that's amazing. When I was a kid, I was also trying to learn this kind of stuff. Anyway, so also I want to ask a question to you. You know that our free time is very important for us. It's like very important part of our life. So it's very interesting for us. What's your favorite pastime activity, and why do you like doing it?
Well, right now, I don't have a huge free time anymore. So I spend my time mostly reading. I used to spend more time playing table tennis. I did that very, very much, but the activity is, you require other people to play with. So these days mostly is in reading and maybe watching my grandchildren. Whenever I see them, they come here to Houston, or I go visit them. You have no time over a weekend. You absolutely have no time to do anything else. But most of my reading now, also, when I say reading, is more on the technical side and what I'm working on. Not I don't read much fiction anymore. I very rarely when I do that.
I do understand. Thank you very much. And also, I have one cliche question for you. How has the industry changed since you started?
I started a long time ago. If you read my resume, I got my bachelor's degree back in 1971, and that is 50 years ago. Uh, I did work in industry for part of before coming to United States, and after coming here to United States, we did several jobs during studying. And some of them were more of a summer job, but some were actually actual work in the field, which was very interesting. Then I have been working in industry for after getting my PhD. It's completely different. At the time when I started, people would work for a company for a very long time. I did, but that does not happen anymore. People end up moving from one company to another. There is so many things that are different. You do not know where to start. Uh, Loyalty of people to companies and the company to people have changed very much. The industry itself has changed a lot. It's almost unrecognizable some of the things that take place right now. But it still is a great industry, and one has to change with time. This is one thing one has to do, regardless of your age. You have to move with time. You can't stop. Yeah. And during my career, the one thing I succeeded, I think, in doing is reconciling my interest with the company interest or the place you work. So if you can't reconcile that interest together, then you have an issue. You have to leave. When I joined the Halliburton company, I did like working for the company, and I thought I can produce a lot, I can contribute a lot, and especially in hydraulic fracturing that I got very interested in. So I succeeded in doing that, and that made me very valuable to the company. It is very different from what I did in my PhD dissertation. I did thermal recovery, but after I finished, I was not too interested in pursuing that same type of work. Actually, I declined offers to continue on that work. But when I joined the Halliburton, I succeeded in reconciling my interest, which I was very interested in rail engineering, as well as in hydraulic fracturing, with the company's interest. I did the same thing when I came here to University of Houston. One of my main interest became to raise the ranking of the university, and we have been raising that rank for the last 3 years or so. We're doing well. We are not going to stop at this point. I'm interested in raising our rank relative to other universities even higher. And when I talk about ranking, I'm talking about ranking as done by US News and World Report.
I do understand. That's very impressive. Thank you very much. And Dr. Soliman, do you recall any interesting stories related to you by any of your elder relatives that you have never forgotten and using your words telling to this audience?
The only thing I can tell you is learning, as I mentioned, how to all the numbers and how to add and subtract on my own. I actually learned this kind of interesting thing. My mother used to say it before she passed away. Is I learned it. There was not too many books at the house. None of my parents nor my older brothers and sisters really read books except for class books, their own class. And you can't, when you're young, 4 or 5 years old, you can't play with it. So my mother used to say that I learned it from Quran, that I would go, that's where we had multiple copies, obviously, of Quran in the house. So you go there and learn all the numbers, not just to 10, but to hundreds. So I knew how to count. And then I started learning, if you're going backward and forward, the differences between numbers. So I ended learning how to add and subtract on my own. So I kind of have a hazy memory of it. I was not in school yet. I was about 4 or 5 years old, probably.
Thank you very much. Mothers are the most important people. May God rest her soul in peace. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our first part is finished. Our live questions finished. Thank you very much for answering our questions.